Video 4 of 6, where does one get podcasting information? All this talk about podcasting, how does somebody find a podcast? How does somebody listen to a podcast? You get the idea. Podcast information is found in one of four places. It's found in search engines. It's found in portable media player software. And portable media player is video or audio. Remember, people are carrying around portable media players that can play video as well as the traditional concept of the iPod. Podcasting information can be found on your website. Podcast information can be found in press about your company. Let's hit all four of these. Search engines, basically, as people look around the internet, they can find things about podcasts just by searching. Let's head out to Google. Let's say I want a marketing online podcast. I search Google, and lo and behold, marketingonlinelive.com pops up. And there's subscription information, the whole 9 yards, video, etc., etc. Now, a lot of people are finding podcast information simply by searching. Even easier is Yahoo's come into play. And if you go to podcasts.yahoo.com, you'll find they have a search engine for podcasts. And what's interesting here is you can actually listen to a podcast. You can actually click a button, won't do it here in the video, but people can actually find podcasts and listen to podcasts directly from within the Yahoo Podcast Directory interface. And in addition to Google and podcast.my.yahoo, there are lots of other search engines. One we've put up is called mypodcastcenter.com. And there are lots of podcast directories such as this where you can actually click around podcast novels and find, exactly the type of podcast that you are looking for. And those are basically the three ways that you can find them in the search engines. And essentially this is important because if people are looking for podcast information, they can go right to the search engines to find them. Next is PMP player software, portable media player software. Now, realize that a lot of people, when they get a new portable media player, an iPod or whatever, they have what I call the new player syndrome. And the new player syndrome is simply they want something to put on their player. And you buy a couple of songs for 99 cents, you get bored, and you start to go to other places. I won't talk about Yahoo Music Engine or Juice. There are lots of different portable media player software packages, and I could spend hours showing you through all of them, but I'm going to give you an idea of how iTunes works because it's the most prevalent. So iTunes, let's go to the music store. iTunes is the program that is the de facto application for, not the de facto, it's the forced application for all things iPod. If you want to put any song, video, audiobook, podcast, whatever on your iPod, you have to do it through iTunes. So go here. We do a search on marketing online, and we can do a subdirectory of podcasts, and look at this. Lo and behold, our podcast shows up. And what I can do is I can subscribe right within the interface for iTunes. And again, this works with all of them. But basically, as people get a new player, they have a device that puts content on the player. And a lot of these devices allow people to search directly within those software packages to find the podcast that they are interested in. And it's not just search. It's you could look for categories. So here are the top podcasts. Let's go to business. And those are the top business podcasts. See how that works? You can just search accordingly and find what it is that you're looking for. So portable media player software is one place to find your podcasts. The next thing is your website. I really recommend that if you do a podcast, that you integrate the podcast into the existence of your website. We showed a little bit of this in Marketing Online Live. Right in the, that went to a forum. Right on the home page for Marketing Online Live, dead set in the center, we have subscription information. And that's very vital because we have a video about how to subscribe. We have iTunes, one-click, Yahoo, the whole 9 yards. This is vital because we want to give people immediately the information they need to start listening to our podcast. And so we've integrated it right into our website. Another example I like to give is the Podcast Brothers. Their website is entirely about their podcast, and what they've done is they've made things very easy. They actually give you the ability to just click a button to hear it. You can play it in a Flash interface right there. Windows Media Player, Real Audio, the whole 9 yards, they're all there. Very nicely done, very tightly integrated, a very simple way, and of course they do the subscription buttons across the top as well. So, your website. The next thing is simply your press. Podcasts are still very press-worthy. Podcasts will not always be press-worthy, but it's something you might really want to consider when it comes to catching the wave. Let's go out to news. Let's go to Google News. And let's just type in the word podcast. Now look at this. It's just today. If I search this out, there are 13 hours ago a podcast, 13 hours ago a podcast, 8 hours ago a podcast, 12 hours ago a podcast, 5 hours ago, 6 hours ago, 9 hours ago, 8, 11, 12. So the entire front page of news about podcast is just podcast-related news that happened today. If you issue a podcast, that act alone might be newsworthy, and it might be a way that somebody finds out about you. Now, if the podcast press release or the podcast article gets you news, leads them to your website, the website then tells people how to subscribe, this is how people find out about podcasts, and this is how people start to listen to them. Catch the wave. So consider 3 questions for you. If your audience had a new portable media player with iTunes or the Yahoo Music Engine or Juice or any of the other programs that put podcast on portable media players, would you like to be found? Would you like somebody who types in the term or searches for the term, would you like them to find you? If you got them to your website, could you build your website in such a way as to direct them to your podcast? And if you were to do a podcast, would just the simple act of doing a podcast, would that get you press? So the next video, we will take a look tomorrow at basically, now that you know the who, what, when, and where of podcasting, we're going to talk about why podcast. Figure out if this is something that you should be doing. So between now and then, I'll see you online. Bye.